Hey guys, it's your boy Ruff, and welcome to episode 3, which is finally getting into Know Your Tank and finally getting into an actual tank. That's right, we're going to be looking at artillery today, and I'm starting with artillery because it's so different, and so I want to make these videos kind of quick so we can get in, get out, and you can get into the game and use these basic strategies and videos and whatnot to help you learn how to play the class. Just very basic stuff to help you get in the game and know how to play. So what is an artillery? Well, essentially, an artillery is death from afar. I mean, that's what they are. They stay back. You don't want to be close. Essentially, they're glass cannons. And for those of you that may not know, okay, what is a glass cannon? Well, a glass cannon is essentially where you have a very big gun, generally do a lot of damage, but you have very little armor. In other words, you take a hit and you're generally going to die. That's exactly what an artillery is. So that's why I say death from afar, because you want to be far away so you're not getting hit, but you can cause a lot of death with that damage. Then the main thing with artillery is also being sneaky. You definitely want to have a lot of camo, staying in behind bushes and just staying away and out of the sight of the enemy is essentially very, very important. And these kind of things are things that you need to consistently focus on. Now, there are a couple things with artillery that is somewhat a bane, so to speak, or a kryptonite, I guess. Number one is it's very reliant on your teammates. You can't see or shoot people you can't see. It's not possible. So it really is going to rely a lot on your teammates to spot and also have good communication, not only typing maybe in the game if you're on PC, or clicking on the map in the console, or just physically in the game having better communications in the game to be able to reach your tank and your tank reach them and be able to tell them where, or spot the tank essentially. And also buildings and hills are very kryptonite for us artillery, and that's because you have to have the direct aim. Generally, the best spot for an artillery is to be up a little bit higher ground, not real high ground, but a little bit higher or far back from a hill or building, so that way it doesn't reflect or affect your angle when you're aiming at somebody. That's why you'll see a lot of tanks kind of hang around buildings and try to because they generally have an idea of where the opponent's artillery are, and so they're going to position themselves around a building or hill or rock or something to make it much harder for you to get a shot onto them, and you have to be ready for that. But that's what the aiming is used for. You can, whenever you're aiming at someone, it'll say that it's red and say shot is obstructed, and when that is being done, that means you're not going to be able to hit them because of something is obstructing your shot. So that's the real basics of artillery. So I kind of want to get into the actual strategy of playing an artillery and even show you some clips. So the first thing is, the further away you are, the safer you are. And we kind of talked about being far away and how you're a glass cannon. So being further away is very important, but the further you are away, the harder the shots are going to be. And that's mainly because of the fact that in the middle of your aiming or your reticle, you'll see a little squiggly line, and then it'll have an amount of seconds. And that's generally saying that it's going to take about this much time, these many seconds, for your shot to get to your destination where you're pointing. And so the further you are out, the longer it's going to take. The closer you are in, the closer you're going to be, and essentially the easier the shots are going to be, because generally tanks are moving. They're not just completely stationary. Occasionally you'll find the stationary tank that's making a mistake, but generally you're not going to find a tank stationary. So in that case, being further away is not a good thing. Now, I think the number one thing that I think I'd love to see more artillery do, and this is, in my opinion, this is literally the number one thing that as an artillery you need to focus on for your teammates. Number one is tracking, okay? This is the most important thing you can do. The reason why is because you can cause so much havoc, and that's what an artillery is there to do, is to annoy people, be a thorn in people's side, and that's exactly what you're doing when you track people. You're causing an annoyance. So I have a couple clips that I'm going to show you. Number one is a video of a guy making a move on my teammates who are off to the east, and he's got the high ground. But as he moves in beside this rock, I'm going to be very, very patient, wait for him, and then I'm going to fire. And you can see I track him because the ribbons start coming in saying, you know, track damage, track damage, track damage, which is really huge for, you know, for your teammates, because now they're just a sitting duck. And that's exactly what we want to do as artillery, is to make it very easy for our essentially teammates to be able to get nice shots in. And when they're tracked, that means they're getting some nice shots in. So that's a really good shot. Number two, I really want to focus or have you guys focus on dealing damage to heavy tanks. As an artillery, if you're looking at a light tank and you're looking at a medium tank and then you see a heavy tank, always put the heavy tank in the priority from those tanks. Generally the normal tanks. Now I will say that if you can spot a artillery, you should probably take out maybe the artillery first, just because that kind of gives you a leg up of, you know, being the only artillery on the map, especially if it's a 1v1. But in this situation, I generally like to attack heavy tanks, and the reason why is because you want to get that heavy tank out of the game. Heavy tanks are known to push. We'll talk more about them in the heavy tanks video. But basically, we want to deal as much damage to them as possible to help our teammates, because it's usually hard to penetrate heavy tanks. They deal the most damage as well. And so we just want to get them off the map. And by dealing as much damage as possible, we want to do that. And also, generally, they take a little bit more damage on the side, so it's a little harder to track them as well sometimes. So especially in a tier 8 game where we're a tier 6, it is definitely something we want to come in from the top, where they're the weakest on top of their tank, and do as much damage as possible. In this clip, I'm actually going after a T-82, and essentially I've recognized that he is with, and we'll just pause it right here. You can notice that I recognize that he is going up against two of my tanks. Most likely this T-82 is dead. And I don't know why he went forward to go after them, but whatever. Essentially, at this point, I recognize that my guys are going to get him. But instead of completely ignoring them, I know that after this shot, I'm going to be moving across the map and going to have to reload anyway and re-aim. I go ahead and take a shot. Let's take a look at it here. And I go ahead and take a shot, and I get lucky. I mean, yeah, the circle was very wide. I let it come in a little bit until I felt comfortable with the shot. I took a shot and took out a tier 8 and a tier 6 artillery. Now, they did a lot of the work as well, but essentially, we could have caused less damage on our buddies over there. He could have maybe gotten one more shot off and had a critical hit on our friendly tank, which could have come back to bite us later in the game. But instead, we take the risk and the shot because we know we're going to be moving across the map, and we happen to get lucky and get the kill. So talking about aiming, since we just saw that clip, one strategy I'd like to bring to your mind is always wait for the aim to fully aim and get as small as possible. And then I'm doing air quotes right now, most of the time. Okay, and the reason why I say most of the time, I think what we just showed you was a perfect example of why we didn't do it that time. Because in that situation, we're going to be moving across the map to support our teammates in the west or the east, and we had two tanks that we knew that, you know what, let's go ahead and take a shot. And in that situation, it was best not to wait. These are things that are just going to come in time. The more and more you play, whether or not you should wait for a full aim or not. But essentially, you want to try to, as much as possible, wait for a full aim. And also with aiming, and this is kind of its own strategy point, is using the hole. Now, I looked and looked and looked, and I could not find any statistical evidence showing that the hole lock actually improves your aim, although I'm superstition, or I have a superstition that it does. And maybe it really does, I don't know. But I always lock the hole before I take a shot. And then I also keep the hole locked as often as possible because I don't want to mess up my aim that I already have. So if you have your hole locked and you actually move to aim, if you go too far, it won't matter because you can continue to move and see around you, but it won't let it go any further than where it's locked. And that's to keep your aim circle as small as possible, so that way you only move it and unlock the hole when you really need to. And that's why it's so important to keep the hole locked as often as possible. And it could increase your accuracy. I'm not sure if that's true. If you know, please leave a comment below, because I'd be very interested to know that. So number 6 is also have to do with aiming, and that is actually the circle compared to the oval. Now, what you'll notice as you're playing an artillery is sometimes the circle is not really a circle, it's more of an oval, and sometimes it'll be a more of a perfect circle, so to speak. And the reason why these two happen is if you are directly looking at a tank, it's more often going to be an oval than if you're to the side of a tank. It's going to be more of a circle, and it also depends on the distance between you and that tank. So if you're very, very close to the tank, it's going to be a very, very super skinny oval, but it's going to be really like tall vertically. But horizontally, it's going to be, you're not even going to tell that it's it's going to look like a straight line. If the tank's very, very far away, it's going to be a smaller circle, okay, until you get too far away where you can't even reach. Your shell can't reach, and then it's going to be a horizontal. That generally doesn't happen, and generally you don't want to take that shot. The reason why I bring it up the oval is because generally this is the most accurate way I've found to really get a nice shot on a tank that you're aiming at. So in this clip I'm going to show you, you can see a perfect, I call it the perfect oval. It's basically where it starts to form an oval. It's large enough, it's not too thin to where it's going to take a chance of shooting way up north or south of the tank. It's a good oval coming in, and we take a shot because most likely what I've found, and I don't know if this is accurate or not, but what I've found in my experience from playing artillery for a while is that if you fire if you're aiming at the tank and it's an oval shape, it's generally going to hit the tank or going to hit in front of the tank. It's not usually going to hit down way south, and I rarely ever see it hit north of the tank when it's at an oval like that. Now, if it's a really small, skinny oval, it's usually a much higher opportunity to hit up north, just because it's much, much longer. But if you have a normal oval, you're more likely to hit the tank where you're aiming. And I found that I have my most accurate shots when it's more of an oval rather than a circle, because a circle can be more accurate for that area, but the oval is actually more accurate to where you're aiming, is what I found. So that might sound crazy. Some of you, I'm sure, that are more experienced can come in and kind of tell me why I'm right or wrong, but to me, that's my experience. And so, you can play around with that and kind of see what works for you. But that's my personal experience. So I say the last clip for my favorite, because this is when this happens in an artillery, I'm always really excited because I love this. It's kind of like a fist pump when you do it, and you just feel so good. And that is when you auto aim and are very actually aggressive with your artillery. Now, obviously, this is not generally something you want to be doing. If this happens, someone, most likely a light tank or a scout, snuck their way through the line, made it all the way back to where you're camping or hiding with your camo, or maybe in your big bush that you're hiding behind. But they're going to come to try to find you and take you out. It's generally the job of a scout, or especially if they find a weak point. You can see, we'll pause it right here in the video, and you can see over on the east side, we had a lot of tanks push up the left side. A few tanks went to the right, but almost no one went up the middle. So I believe this light tank came right up the middle and kind of started like moving around pretty quickly on the backside of the map. So instead of just sitting there, and even though my team was very aware and was coming to protect me or try to, I didn't just wait for them to make the move or try to hide. I decided to be aggressive with it. So let's go ahead and play the video, and you can see I'm very, very aggressively, and bang, bang, I auto lock and shoot very, very quickly. Auto aiming is so important when you're getting as close as you can to them, and that's the goal, is to basically try to ram them, and then but right before you get too close, fire, deal a ton of damage to them, most likely kill them. As you can see, I got a one-shot kill. And that's just because we are so close. And again, that glass cannon build, if we would have missed, it would have been very, very scary. But being that close, the odds of missing are very slim. That's why when a tank is generally attacking you, unless you have a rock to kind of maneuver around to give you more time to aim and or reload, or maybe a hill to back down to, generally in the open, you just want to go for them. Maybe swerve a little bit, hope that they bounce or they don't kill you, and then take a shot and just pray. I mean, essentially at that point, that's what you have to do. It's the truth. So the seventh and final point, and we're going to be done, is practice, practice, practice. These are things that you have to practice. In this clip, I'm going to show you the very last clip, actually, is where I am aiming at this TD, and if we pause the video, I should have, and again, this comes with practice, I should have realized my surroundings. My light tank scout actually ended up scouting the one other artillery, and being the one artillery, that other artillery has no idea where I am. I should have taken advantage of attacking that artillery. Unfortunately, I was too gun-ho to take this tank destroyer out, and I wasn't focusing on the whole map, which generally you're supposed to. So again, that comes with practice, getting used to looking at the map all the time and consistently seeing what your scouts are finding. But essentially, what I do here as we continue the video, I noticed that I've got a pretty good 2.7 seconds to have to hit this T28. And you know what? It's not easy. It's not easy, but these are things that come with practice. You can see I perfectly aim. Essentially, I determine how fast he's moving, how long it's going to take my projectile to get there. I make a fire, I take a shot, and I get lucky and hit him. And that comes with practice, understanding, how fast his tank's moving, how fast my shells move, and that just comes with practice. And I didn't kill him, but I did get a nice damage on him, and that could have ended up coming back to help my teammates because maybe he didn't have as much health when he finally got into a battle with one of my teammates. So, and I think we did end up winning this match. So, basically, it's a good way of understanding that you're going to make those shots and you're going to miss. I miss them too. But I make a lot more now because of my experience and my practice of playing artillery. And that's it, guys. That is understanding the basics for artillery. You can hop into a game right now, go ahead and select that artillery, start working up a tree, and using the resources that we talked about in episode 1 to help you determine which tree you want to go down. And that's exactly what you should do, and use these tips and tricks. And if you have advice for players that maybe I missed something that you think, hey, I think he missed this, and I think it would be a great piece of advice, put it down in the comments for everybody to see. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put those down in the comment as well. Make sure you subscribe for the other episodes. We're going to be continuously rolling these out. I'm not sure what tank I'm going to do next, so the next one's going to be a little bit more of a mystery. But I'm so excited to be actually now in the tanks and in the game and to be able to show you guys some footage. So I hope this helps. Take this, go into the game, use it, download the game. It's free. And start playing some artillery. Use this strategy. Think about everything that I said, and hopefully it'll help you. and I hope this series is helping you. But until next time, guys, go out there, rain death from above and from afar. Ruff out.
I find the best spot is the orange. I don't know the spots on a Kiwi fool. I never really fought a Kiwi fool.